Ryder DLX 1200 burn off and review. Now a lot of you that have been following me for a couple years know that I've already had a Ryder DLX, aka the War Machine. I never really had any issues with my Ryder DLX. I actually gave it to a friend and it's still running today. But Oklahoma Joe's did a couple big adjustments to this pit and we'll talk about it during the burn off. So grab a pen and some paper, Heath. We're gonna amplify some backyard barbecue fun. Doing the initial burn off on every single pellet grill is a must. You wanna make sure that you're burning off any machining oil and debris from the manufacturing process. And because this pit is painted, we wanna make sure that we're curing it nice and slow. If you haven't finished the assembly yet on the Ryder DLX 1200, leave all the grates and the baffles out, because the first thing that you're gonna wanna check is make sure that this pit is operating correctly. So we'll just open up the lid, we'll get the warming racks out, and because of these hooks, you can just hang them right on the back. Take my tool and get my center grate out, and we'll get our baffles out. Now this is one new upgrade to the Ryder DLX, that these baffles come up so you can see inside that fire pot a lot easier. The old version, you had to take the whole assembly apart to get into that fire pot. So in my opinion, this is a big bonus. Sometimes on a long, low, and slow cook, those little screens can fill up with a little bit of ash. So it's nice that we can get right in there and maybe take a small little screwdriver and knock it free. Take and plug in the pit, open up our hopper, and just look inside and make sure there's no debris blocking that auger. Turn the power on and turn the knob all the way down to low. And press the knob to enter, and then it's gonna turn on, and we're gonna run this for about 3 minutes. We wanna watch that auger to make sure that that's turning, and then we're gonna check our fire pot to make sure that our igniter is starting to glow red. The igniter is glowing nice and red, and I can also feel some warm air coming out of that fire pot. We wanna make sure that our ash cap is nice and tight, but don't torque it on because there's some oil in there, and as this starts to burn off, that oil is gonna kinda glue up that ash pot. We can hold the power button and shut it off. Now that we know everything is working correctly, let's go ahead and dump in some pellets. I don't have to fill it all the way up, but we're gonna get at least 10 pounds in. You have a 20-pound hopper on the Ryder DLX, and that's enough for an overnight cook, but I would always check it right before I went to bed. I always season up every single pellet grill before I do the burn off. Now you can skip this procedure if you want to. I prefer to get a nice coating across the whole pit. The more you use this pit, the more it's gonna season. So as long as we got it all opened up and nothing in there, let's give it a spray. Cover up the back end of it, the sides, spray a little bit down in the fire pot, get a little on these cast iron grates. We can start putting our baffles back in and just check for those knobs, and they fit in perfectly. One new change is that this has 2 heat probes measuring the temps in here. The first one is right in the back of the sear plate, and our other one is just like the original right here on the left-hand side. And this is the first pit that I've ever seen 2 temperature probes in the chamber. Now we'll just finish spraying up the top of this heat deflector, grab our tool, and we'll put back the honeycomb cast iron grate and give this a little spray down too. Now I know some of you from the comments in the past told me that your honeycomb center grate did crack. I'm hoping that they came up with a better forging process so that doesn't happen again. I'm not gonna spray down the warming racks. These are porcelain coated, but we still wanna get them burned off. You never know, somebody might have licked it, and we wanna make sure we get that burnt off. Grab your handle and turn it over to sear. Press the power on, and we're gonna crank this in 25-degree increments down to low, and then just press the button. We're gonna leave the lid open because we want all that white smoke to escape out of the chamber. This is gonna take a little bit because we're waiting for those pellets to get to the fire pot. And you can see that the controller is saying pre, and that's standing for preheat. And just keep on watching that display, and you start seeing a little bit of smoke, that means your pellets have ignited. Once you hear that afterburner kick in, you can close up the lid because it's gonna start burning a lot cleaner. It's starting to read low in a temperature, and now I'm gonna set a timer for 45 minutes and let this pit burn out. It's gonna take a few minutes still for this to preheat, and I wanna make sure that I'm getting a complete 30 minutes on this burn off. My 30-minute timer went off. Let's go ahead and check and see if we've developed any patina on that stainless steel in that pit. Oh yeah, for sure the stainless is starting to develop a nice dark patina, but you can see that these cast iron grates, they're still kind of wet. So to really season this up, we're gonna turn this over to smoke, and then we'll turn the controller up to 250 degrees. And we're gonna set up a timer for 30 minutes. Now you don't have to do this, but I like to because I want all of that PAM to kind of dry out and burn off. Plus this gives me enough time to do the review on the Ryder DLX 1200. One big improvement on this pit is they now have it accessible to that auger. You still have your quick draw release to get rid of your pellets, so you can change out the pellets to any type of flavors that you want to do on any certain types of cooks. The only issue that I ever had on my older Ryder DLX was that I had a pellet jam one time because I didn't dump out those pellets. The new 1200 has a much stronger auger, so I don't think that's going to be an issue anymore. But they still suggest that you dump out the pellets after your cook. But we'll discuss that more when we get into the shutdown cycle. This is a PID controller, and it will read and react. You can hear it shut down. Now it's going back on because it wants to be cooking at that 250 degrees. It still reads two different cooking temps. You can see right now we're set at smoke. If we go to sear, it will start reading what that temperature would be right above the sear plate. It comes with 2 meat probes, but it comes with 4 probe ports. It has 2 programmable timers, and you can set it so it counts down or it counts up. You can also set your probes to tell you when you've reached your done temp. The controller, it is not Wi-Fi. For me, that's not a deal breaker. But for some of you, you might be waiting for the version 3 to come out if you really want it to be able to have an app. The temperature range on the Ryder DLX is anywhere from 180 up to 650 degrees if you have that sear plate open and you're gonna do up some steaks or burgers. You also have this nice little shelf if you wanna store some of your equipment inside it. One really big cool feature that I love is these new rubber coated wheels. The front casters lock, but this thing moves like a skateboard. Out of all the pellet grills that I've owned, this one still has the easiest one to grab when they're running hot. It's far enough away from the chamber and it's rubberized so it doesn't get real hot to the touch. We still have our standard side shelf and tool hook. It comes with one standard pellet bucket, but you can also get another one that has a screen in it, and that makes it so you can dump in your pellets and get rid of some of that dust buildup when it's been sitting in the pit. We know that we set our temperature at 250 degrees, and you can hear the fan going off and on because it doesn't want to exceed that set temp. As far as the body design, it's still pretty much the same. The chamber is still made out of a heavier gauge steel. Okay, there's our timer. We'll shut that off. But before we shut it down, let's take a look inside. Yeah, the cast iron grates have dried up good enough, so we're gonna call it quits. So now, let's do the shutdown cycle. Just hit the shutdown button, and now it's telling us to drain the hopper. Grab your pellet bucket, pull out the quick draw, and you'll see that they're running right out of the hopper. Might have to wiggle it a little bit, and then it's gonna go into the shutdown cycle. This is the only con that I have about this pit. It's going to take at least 30 minutes before it completely shuts off. And it also burns off all those pellets that are in that tube. Now, it's not the end of the world, but if you're just gonna grill up a few burgers, you're still gonna have to go through that 30-minute shutdown cycle. But I get it. That was probably the most comments that I got on the original War Machine. A lot of people were complaining that they had auger jams. Oh, heck yeah, I'm excited to have the old War Machine back. You kidding me? You can finish it. You know, big dragon boots, long tongue, breathes fire, spits blood. You know who that is. The toughest bass player ever. Not like a dope like they're making now for rock. Those guys are all bozos. You don't even need a bass player anymore. Just play it on a synthesizer. Zing, zing, zing. Zing, 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 zing. Boo-doo. Well, that's all I got. Roll the nation.